This is Hope and Help with Doctors Michelle and Mark Sherwood. Insights and interviews with a dose of straight talk to help you enjoy optimal health in all areas of life.
So we are back for another exciting episode of Hope and Health, and I had a brand new friend. His name is Greg, and he's going to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, which is the subject of hydrogen. As many of you know, we've talked about this multiple times before in the past when we're talking about some biochemical pathways and things like that. Not to get too techie, don't want to destroy what's happening. We're going to do this in two parts because it's going to be chock full of information. So, Greg, welcome, man. I appreciate you being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And it's a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Dr. Mark.
Hey, man, you can call me anything. I'll answer to it probably, but I'm just glad you're here. Seriously. Now you've been, we were talking before coming on, you've been dealing and using the hydrogen since 2007. And trust me, I know this, that's way before it was even cool, right? So
Yes.
Just kind of start in, Greg. And I think since our audience doesn't know you, tell a bit about your background history and how hydrogen became a part of your life.
Yeah, and even before I begin, just if people see this, I'm breathing in some hydrogen right now because it's a good time when we're sitting here just chatting. So it's a great time to breathe it in. But yeah, hydrogen was really interesting. For me personally, I was just incredibly sick. I did work in the medical field for quite a long time, about 20 years. And when I was sick, I know how they tend to work. I'm sure you obviously know really well. And what the process is, when you come into the office and all the different things that they do. And if I'm really honest, they just weren't doing much for me. In fact, they weren't doing anything for me. It was pretty sad, pretty disappointing, and nothing against them. And before I begin, I always like to say I am not giving any medical advice, and I'm not making any medical claims because I'm not. And then beyond that, I always encourage people to do research.
Amen. I appreciate that, Greg.
And that's something that I was so ill. I had obviously I had a heart condition. I also had an issue that was just completely unexplained by science. I was in extreme pain. I also had something called what appears to be neurofibromatosis. I had neurofibromas growing on my body, a type of tumor, and they were in my nerves. And boy, if anybody knows anything about nerve pain, man, it's brutal. It destroyed me. I would, if I'm honest, it destroyed me. I would even say psychologically, because the pain would last. On a level 10, they have that 10 scale. I was at a level 10 for literally 6 months straight. And
now, when was this, Greg, by the way, time frame, so we get a good reference here?
It was a while back. Let me think here. 2000. It started gradually. So it started with some issues and it got worse. It all probably started around 2007, right? Which is literally when I first started reading the very first scientific studies of hydrogen. And it was all around that time. And just to clarify, when I first started reading the data on hydrogen, I didn't use it immediately for many reasons. Because part of the process, here's where I think hydrogen actually already gets confusing, is you have two aspects. You have the science, which is fantastic. But the one part that nobody talks about is the engineering, because engineering is involved on how you apply hydrogen, because there's many ways to make hydrogen. There's so many different ways. So there's an engineering and then there's science, and then it becomes a little weird. And I would say that my specialty, first I was reading the data. So I'm reading a lot of the scientific data. To be honest, it sounded way too good to be true. I was like, this can't be real. I'm such a skeptic. If people know my personality, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy. And I'm like, whatever, this sounds way too good to be true. And I did not start using hydrogen in 2007 at all. I read the data for almost 4 years before I ever thought of applying it. And so I was really sick, and I was applying a lot of things. I was learning a lot about, the proper diet. I was learning a lot about how to clean the water to the maximum level, because I really had a gut instinct. I have a lot of weird gut instincts. And clean water to me was something that was crucial. It's almost biblical. There's a lot of talk about water in scripture. And I actually think that a lot of the answers that we're looking for are in scripture. And I don't think people noticed. There's these really weird Bible verses that I have found that literally look like hydrogen. And it gets really fascinating to me. I'm so fascinated by the scriptures. I'm so fascinated by it.
Awesome. Love it.
And so I think this is very spiritual in nature also, because the body is the temple of God. And I just think it's so fascinating. And even all the doctors and all the scientists in the world, we still don't understand this body.
No way.
We don't get it, And so we only understand certain things. And I think a lot of people realize that once they go down the medical road, because the doctors don't always know everything, and that's
you mean they don't have a higher place in heaven or anything like that? Is that not? I've been told that, but I kid about that a lot. But we totally on the same page, Greg, because the body is the temple of God, and it is so amazing in its makeup. We are never going to figure it out because his ways and thoughts are higher than ours. So, man, I'm with you. I appreciate you saying that.
And what's interesting about what you just said is that when hydrogen goes in your body, it can literally do one thing for one person and one thing for a different person. And this is what I find so mind-blowing about hydrogen, because it's a selective antioxidant. It's not just an antioxidant, it's selective.
Yeah.
And I've seen stuff that it does in studies that literally boggles the mind, not just my mind, the scientists. They're like, wait a second, how can it do this and this? And it's just amazing, And of course, the creators behind it all, and how are we to understand that? But I think that if we can, I always felt like what I tried to do, because I am not a, super genius, 250 IQ, that's not who I am. And so I wanted to find something. And ironically, this is actually what happened to me. I was so sick that it got to the point where I literally couldn't hold anything in my hand. My joints hurt so bad. I couldn't hold like a phone. I had a remote control. I couldn't lift up a remote control to change the channel on a television, and I was in so much pain. And I made a prayer. I mean, I still remember it to this day. I was laying on the couch. I couldn't move. I was all by myself. It's always a little hard to talk about it because, it's emotional. Try not to cry on your podcast here.
I've cried many times here, so I don't mind that. Tears, you sometimes can see better when you cry a little bit. So it's all good.
But basically, I made a prayer. I made a prayer to God, and I said, if you can just show me not only what will help me, because I believe that whatever could help me must be able to help others. I just felt it instinctual, because there's so many people with unanswered, problems. I think one of the biggest things you hear when you go to the doctor's office is, well, we don't know why this happens. We don't know, it's always one of these, right? But we have this medication to try to litigate symptoms, and it's the same thing, right? At least the doctors that are in the box, right? Because anyway, that's a long story. So I was on the couch and I prayed and I made a promise though. And that's one of the reasons that I'm actually here on camera with you, is because I made a promise and I said, if you can guide me and you can show me, then I promise I'll share it with people and others. Because as you well know, when they asked Jesus what the most important thing is in all the scriptures, he said, love one another as I have loved you, He's, and obviously in the 10 Commandments, obviously right there at number 2, which is right there next to number 1, which is love your neighbor as yourself. So I knew that this had to be all about people and how we can help others. And so I told him, I just prayed and I said, hey, if you show me the way, I promise I'll share it. And that was actually the reason why I started sharing my YouTube channel and everything else, which if anybody's interested in knowing, the name of the YouTube channel is Uprising 144K. And if you remember that number, 144K, that's a biblical number of the 144,000. That's what the K stands for, 1,000. It's all one word. And I educate a lot about hydrogen and everything that I discovered on my own. And I prayed. And I learned a lot about a lot of things. I was never a health guru. This is definitely not the path that I thought I would go down at all. It's, all I can say is that I think God just opens up the way and you either choose to walk it or you don't. And in my case, I felt like I had no choice. It was like, you either do this or you're dead.
Yeah.
That was my unfortunate journey, because it really, if I'm honest, it's been absolute hell. And I always felt like I ruined my life. And the only good thing that's come out of all of it, the only good thing is everything that I've learned that I can share with others so that they can help and improve their lives. That's it. I can't think of anything else good other than it's been very humbling. I'll say that much. It's been very humbling.
There's a scripture that talks about that, Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And so this would be categorized as all things, I suspect.
Oh, thank you for that. Because that's That's a beautiful thing. And like I said, anything that we can do in service to others and God, I'm all for it, man. That's, so in that regard, so after I learned about hydrogen, which is very interesting, the one part that I say that almost nobody talks about when it comes to hydrogen, obviously there was the Japanese who really discovered hydrogen. Let's give them credit for that. Yeah. And they discovered a ton of other stuff when it comes to health. They're amazing people. I just think that they're remarkable and they love health. And out of any industrialized nation in the world, they have the highest life expectancy. I think that says something too. Yes. But they're amazing people. And one of the things that they obviously discovered, they really learned about hydrogen. They began to do a bunch of scientific studies. Interestingly enough, their pharmaceutical industry was not very happy about this. And that's because it's not their pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical industry is, I don't know, it seems to be worldwide.
Yes, absolutely.
And so they did a lot of fighting. It was very hard to get funding for the testing. It was a lot of fighting to get it approved, but it got approved. I'm sure you're aware that hydrogen's approved in the medical establishment in Japan. Yeah. And they have a very westernized system. So it was not easy for them to get this approved and show that this is the real deal. This is not one of these, videos that you watch where people are like, oh yeah, we think that putting a crystal ball on your head is good and spinning around 300 times. And there's no science there, And so I'm really big on the science of things because otherwise you're going to be trying everything under the sun and it's just too much. That's what I found. And so I found about eating, a lot of it correlated also again to the Bible. I went for purity. That was my big thing, cleanest water, cleanest food. Everything was about purity, but hydrogen changed the game for me. And then I began to use it for like my father. My father was my very first guinea pig. And I learned the one part that nobody talks about hydrogen is how to make it and how to implement it properly, because there's so many ways. And that's where the engineering really comes in, not just the science of hydrogen. And I found that there's a lot of ways to make hydrogen that are really not just incorrect, but they also have a lot of byproduct. Some of them are even quite dangerous. I can't even believe it. Well, I know why these companies do it. I found out later because they contacted me and they tried to get me to promote certain things and offered me a lot of money, and I turned them down because it wasn't the right way to do hydrogen. Mm-hmm. And this is where I really, really educated on that part. But as time went on, it did wonders for me. But my father's story is always amazing because my father it was slight issues with blood pressure and cholesterol. Those were always things on his radar, but he also had issues with glaucoma. He had glaucoma for over 30 years. He also had really bad arthritis. And he also had, what was the last one? Arthritis. I always have to remember. Borderline diabetic. He was basically really close to being diabetic. And when we implemented the hydrogen based on the science, and the science in Japan even talked about how we should make the hydrogen also on these studies. Again, what nobody really noticed, though, the Japanese made a device which followed all that science. That's how I found them, because I was like, I'm trying to follow the science here. And all these devices out there, like made in China, they were using really crappy technology, excuse my French, but it was terrible. And I couldn't find anything that was doing it right. And that path led me to Japan. The number one hydrogen company in the world is a Japanese company. And they had a device that followed all the guidelines. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And that's literally what I'm breathing in right now is from that device. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I applied it to my father, and all those issues went away. His doctors were completely flabbergasted when they saw that his glaucoma went away, because they've been tracking him for years. And they're like, this is impossible. How is this possible? They tested him 4 times. Every couple months, they were like, no, we have to have you come back because this can't be possible. We think there's a mistake. They thought they were making mistakes with the testing. And so it completely changed my father's life, which I am super grateful for. I don't honestly think that my father would be here right now, actually, if it wasn't for hydrogen.
And your father's still alive now, I guess. You take it, right? Okay.
Oh, he's alive and he walks miles a day, and it's unbelievable. My father is like Superman. It's, but you go back so many years and that wasn't the case. So it's really done like a miracle. In fact, that's what convinced my mother, because my mother didn't believe in hydrogen at all either. She was like, she's a skeptic, she doesn't believe in this stuff. But now she's a big believer. Oh, you better believe it. She believes in hydrogen now. Yeah. And she's had amazing results. She used to get I don't know if my mom wants me to share this, but she used to get UTIs regularly, all the time. I don't know, 2-3 times a year. Got on hydrogen, and she also had to use Gatorade regularly because she would feel dizzy and she didn't feel like she was hydrated. And then I set them up. I set them up with a carbon distiller. That's the only way to purify your water to 99.9%. And I have links and to the proper, the made in America, the right ones. And then the other thing that she started doing was obviously the hydrogen protocol. And my parents didn't want to change a lot of things. I got to say, I wasn't ecstatic that they didn't want to change anything. The only thing they were willing to change is the clean water and the clean hydrogen made properly in the proper protocol. That's all they were willing to change. I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit that they didn't want to change anything because I thought they'd be better off if they made other changes in their life, right? Mm-hmm. But that's all they were willing to do. And it worked so good. I didn't think it worked that good. I thought if they made dietary changes and everything would work better, but they were just like, nope, this is all we're willing to do is clean water and hydrogen. That's it. So they did that. And my mother's UTIs completely quit. She didn't even get them anymore. No more antibiotics every so many months. So that was quite remarkable. And then she had a thyroid issue, which was really interesting. Every time she'd go to the doctor, they kept having to lower her prescription medication. So that's another interesting one. But I've seen all sorts of interesting things with hydrogen. I've been dealing with for so long. I've seen people with chronic fatigue syndrome, people with high blood pressure, people with diabetes, people with cholesterol issues, people with glaucoma. There was a lady recently who had a degenerative eye disease called, it's one of the most prominent that makes you go blind. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Mm-hmm. Like a macular degeneration kind of concept.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, that's right. It was macular degeneration. And she went hog wild on hydrogen. And it took 2 years, but she was crazy on hydrogen for 2 years. And it made her macular degeneration go away. She messaged me and I was like, what? That's crazy. I couldn't believe it because that's not something that goes away.
A lot of people don't get it. Like when we talk, Greg, a lot of times when I'm talking to patients and people around the world, literally, the inexplicable damage that excess free radicals cause throughout the body in all kinds of systems, you can't track that. There's just no way. And so our body, if it's functioning right and it has what it needs, it actually has the ability to remedy things. So, you mentioned a couple key things that I want to make sure people are with. The biblical structure in life in which we're supposed to leave, the instructions right there. I call the Bible basic instruction before leaving earth. I mean, it's pretty clear. But when we follow the structures of God's intent and give the body what it needs, it's still the image of God we're talking about here. So the body will begin to function normally, and it's not unusual, nor is it unexpected to see disease conditions reverse when the body has what it's supposed to have so that it can do what it's supposed to do. I mean, I think that's very important for people to understand. It's not like, oh my goodness, it's not supposed to do it. It is supposed to do that if it's given the right information.
Absolutely. In fact, that was exactly my theory when I was really ill and no doctor could find my solution. I was just trying to tear it down because I'm like, look, I believe in God's creation. So what did he intend here? And what did we screw up, to screw this up? And then that's when I became very big on not having deficiencies, because I believe if this structure is supposed to have these building blocks, then I need to have the right level so that I have no deficiencies, and then of course, don't introduce anything that causes me harm. So is there stuff in my water that shouldn't be there? Is there stuff in the air that shouldn't be there, which is pretty hard to get away from?
Yeah,
but,
true.
Is there stuff in my food that shouldn't be in there? And that's what I did. And then with time, hydrogen was the one thing that just, it seems, and this is backed by sciences, it seems to bring balance because the body is all about, in the end, it seems to be oxidative stress and this antioxidant. So it's oxidant and antioxidant. And it's a balance. You don't want too much of one or the other, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like it's redox balance is what it's called. Reduction oxidation. And so the body has these calibration systems, and not all oxidation or free radicals is bad. I mean, there's free radicals that come up and they're designed, and we're talking about things such as hydrogen peroxide, for example. When that comes up, there's some designs in the body to actually be able to deal with and handle viruses. How cool is that, right? So I get that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And when I found out from the research, that's why hydrogen is not only a selective antioxidant, which makes it very unique. It's tiny. It's so tiny it can penetrate the mitochondria. I mean, this is bonkers. I mean, it can go right past the blood-brain barrier. I mean, this is huge stuff, And there's even some research in Japan. I actually posted some on my YouTube channel. There's medical clinics in Japan using hydrogen for dementia, Alzheimer's, stuff in the brain. Hence the reason I'm inhaling the hydrogen. It goes straight to my brain right now, to my eyes also. I've discovered that the hydrogen water and the hydrogen gas both kind of do different things. And of course, the Japanese realize this. This is the reason that the number one hydrogen company in the world made a device that specifically makes the water and inhalation. It does both at a high level, and so that's why what I'm using is literally exactly what I want, but it also makes it in a very pure manner. That's been another, again, back to the way that they're making it is important. It's not just like, oh, hydrogen. Okay, great. I mean, we could make hydrogen by putting lye in water, and highly toxic. And there's hydrogen machines out there that do it. And it's like, are you guys not, I mean, no offense, but like, are you not thinking like this stuff is so toxic, and yet people use it and swear by it. And I'm just like, oh, they don't understand. Again. Well,
as you know this, Greg, and I think people know me well enough to know that there's a lot of marketers out here that are taking advantage of people. They'll get something out there like the next best thing. It's a shiny ball, and people, especially in America, are always looking for the quick fix. So we become ripe, if you will, for the harvesting of situations, just like you mentioned.
Yeah. And, I would love a quick fix too. Unfortunately, you can't go from 300 pounds to 160 pounds in a day. You have to change that diet. You got to start eating healthy. Which, if again, not to bring up my channel again, but if you see there's a beautiful story. I think the woman's a little embarrassed to share it, but she's such a wonderful person that she's allowed me to share her story. She was 340 pounds, and she's in a wheelchair, and she used hydrogen. And one of the things that science shows is that when you become large, you're overweight. Literally, all this signaling kind of begins to go bonkers in the body. Some of the latest research shows that you can start getting inflammation just from being overweight. Inflammatory markers going all over the body. She got on hydrogen, and she is under 300 pounds right now.
Yeah,
and that's not the only thing that's happened to her. She's completely off of her high blood pressure medication. The doctors are like, "Why is this happening? Like just magically?" They didn't know she's on hydrogen, and I literally. I've been talking to her for well over a year, and she finally is like, okay, I'm going to try this hydrogen stuff. She watches my channel, and she finally got on the hydrogen, did it the right way, used the right equipment, used the right protocol, and her results have been remarkable. So periodically when I see her, I'll take video and I'll say, hey, what's going on with you now? And she's always sharing the latest and greatest. And it's been it's a miracle to see it in action. A real story, not somebody who's getting paid or somebody who's just lying. She's very genuine, and she's like, this is what's happening. Is she off of all her medications? No, but they're lowering a lot of her medications. She's only been on hydrogen for 5 months. And so, as you had just mentioned,
it's fascinating. People need to understand the concept of inflammation. It's like the majority of Americans, and now people around the world, because of the systemic rapid growing obesity, the excess strain and stress in the body, that excess fat tissue, it becomes an endocrine organ, and it actually signals to the body there's an emergency. And these emergency signals are really known as inflammatory signals. So that is why it has been such an issue as a comorbidity to many, many disease conditions, including what we've been talking about for the last 2 years. I mean, it's no argument there. And people need to understand that it is not okay to have excess adiposity on the frame. We need to get it off yesterday and do whatever it means. And I have been using molecular hydrogen myself for, many, many years now. I think probably 8 years, I guess. And self-admittedly, I know it's right. I know the science, but the manufacturing stuff on there, I don't, but I knew it was right and had great results. But I'm excited about, using the machine that you're talking about. It's going to be in my house. It's going to be in our clinic. And hear me, folks, we're going to put it in your hands too, because that's important, because we want people out there to be well and healed. So I'm with it, man. I'm excited about this, Greg.
Yeah, it is exciting too, because they've really done such a great job to make it accessible. That was the big thing when I was reading the data. I'm like, okay, so it took me almost 4 years to be sold on hydrogen. That's how much data I read. And then when I saw it, I'm like, okay, how do I get this? That was like the question. Yeah. And I mean, even the machine that I'm using right now, it literally didn't come out till 2018. So this lets you know how long it took. Yeah. And they specifically followed the science and based everything that they've been learning to develop this technology. And it wasn't easy. I mean, to get this quality of hydrogen, I mean, you literally, I kid you not, you needed a lab. It was not cheap to make something like this. And there was a device, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was $11,000. It was a Japanese device, and all it could do was make the inhalation. That's all it could do. But based on the science, I mean, we know that the water is actually better than the inhalation. Yeah. And not that the inhalation is not good, but what I've discovered through just a lot of trial and error and knowing a lot of people who've used it is that using the gas and the water is where it's at. The combination is where it's at. And that's how I've developed a lot of my protocols. And this device allows you to do that. It does both at a high level, the water and the gas. And this is the only company in the world, I don't even know if you're aware of this, it's the only hydrogen company in the world that actually lab tests every single machine and certifies them. They're all certified. They come with a certificate.
Wow. Did not know that. That's wonderful.
That's bonkers, because it would be way too expensive for anybody to do this. And the only reason they can do it is because, well, one, they're the number one hydrogen company in the world, and they're in Japan that has all the proper equipment to test properly. And nobody in the world has that kind of equipment. I mean, they have things like, and I can't even remember the name of the equipment they use, but it's in the millions of dollars. It's not easily accessible. And so that's something that I just love the way these Japanese people who are into hydrogen, they're into it like I'm into it. And, like if I'm going to get an electric car, I'm going to get a Tesla,
talk about this, because this is always a question I get, because we've been recommending hydrogen for a long time to people, but all we could find, this is literally all we could find. And, this is self-admittedly, this is what I had to find, like the dissolvable tablets that you would put into an open glass of water and they would fizz in and diffuse them. And I know there is some inherent issues with that. I want to talk about that. Can you?
Yeah, well, Japan quickly realized that was not the best way to go, to be honest. They pretty much done away with those pills. They sell them in America because we're 10, 15 years behind.
And they are expensive, by the way, folks. Here, I mean, they're like high dollar. And frankly, Greg, that's why a lot of people that are listening right now, they know it's right. We can show them genetically. We can look at the enzymes that are in the antioxidant system and the pathways within the mitochondria. But the expense of it all has made it where it's not sustainable.
It's actually the most expensive way to use hydrogen. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many Japanese scientists and the doctors in Japan, it's not the best way to use hydrogen. They use metallic magnesium, which causes a chemical reaction. And it produces hydrogen, but there's a byproduct. And this is the biggest thing I've learned about making hydrogen is how can you make it without a byproduct? And believe me, that's not easy to do. There's always seems to be some type of byproduct when you're making hydrogen. And what I found fascinating is that one of the gentlemen who works at the Japanese company that is the number one hydrogen company in the world, one of them has a daughter who has Lou Gehrig's disease. He was told that she was supposed to be dead by 5 years old. She wouldn't make it past 5 years old. I believe now she's like 12 or 13, just so you know.
Wow.
And she's doing fantastic. And she would get constant lung infections, like literally like every week or every 2 weeks. It was just constant. And he wanted, one of his goals was to develop, he really believed in hydrogen. He knew the hydrogen technology. He wanted to develop a type of device that we could have at home that was small, not some gigantic thing, because there's big hydrogen machines out there, something small. And the Japanese always like things small. They always like these tiny
They do. Small cars, smaller people. I don't know.
It's true, though. And they don't have a lot of space in their country. It's like the size of California. And so they wanted to make it small. And one of the things to make hydrogen properly, there's really three components, but one of the number ones was the metal technology. The metal technology is one of the biggest issues because when you're electrolyzing or ionizing water, it's going to leach metal. This is one of the and you don't want to get heavy metals in your body. Of course, with the metallic magnesium, literally people notice a metallic taste. And what they were noticing is basically they were seeing not very good things for the liver, the reproductive organs, and the brain. And they were like, we got to find a pure way of doing this. And then as time went on, they requested from a company because he wanted this device literally for his daughter. I mean, the whole reason he developed it was for his daughter. And I just found this like such a beautiful story because eventually when they developed the device, it's been remarkable for his daughter. Mine just beeped.
There you go.
And in fact, while I keep talking, I'm going to reset it here. But so he developed this machine with the help of not only a lot of other people, but what a lot of people don't realize about Japan is that they're very unified. So for example, you have Mitsubishi, you have Yamaha, you have, Toyota, and you think that these companies don't work together. You're absolutely wrong. They very much work together because they know that it's greater for their nation, for their people. And this is, again, one of the beautiful things about Japan. They understand that there's strength in unity. I think that's something that's good for the whole world, to realize.
Maybe we need to learn that in America, folks. Listen.
Absolutely. Even if people disagree, we have to unite under the fact that, hey, we should love each other. Again, back to, Jesus saying loving your neighbor and whatnot. It's so important. We can't be fighting. And that always makes me sad, which is why I tend to stick to just, I'll help anybody who has medical issues. And it doesn't matter what they believe. I'm going to love them anyway. That's just my.
Of course.
And so with that being said, they needed a certain grade of metal. And there was a company that actually makes certain metals for machines that go to outer space, even for like NASA. And that particular company is in Japan. And people don't understand that the Japanese have just amazing metal technology. Just think about their samurai swords. They were way ahead of the game. They're like 600 years ahead of everybody. Again, amazing people. And the company that they took it to, I found out, they said it's impossible. We cannot make what you're requesting. And it was years. And eventually technology was able to advance. And they said, you know what, we can do this now. And that's why the machine was released in 2018, because of their metal technology. And that's just part of it, though. There's so much more to this device that just fascinates me. And I'm not an engineer, but I had to learn a lot to understand all this, even things that are not my forte. But the metal was a huge part because just about every hydrogen device out there is made in China, Taiwan, Korea, and they're using cheap metals. And that's what I found out later. And you're going to use hydrogen for the long haul. Yeah. And because you're going to use it for the long haul, you have to absolutely make sure that what you're getting is very pure. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. And so that device that was $11,000 that only did the gas, did a very high quality gas. It was really good. It didn't make the water, but it made the gas. $11,000 was a little steep probably for most people for an inhalation device. It was for me. I didn't buy it.
No.
It's just too expensive, though I would have if I could have afforded it. But eventually, the quality of what the gas that this device is making was tested and compared to that $11,000 device, and this one blew it out of the water. And this device is under $2,500, and it does both the water and the gas. So this changed the game of hydrogen. This particular device, and so that's how it kind of all began. And there's many other aspects to how this thing makes hydrogen. They use a specific filter called a H-type DI filter. I don't believe there's any in existence other than this company that developed it. And everything in it is food grade. Another amazing thing. Not a lot of people do that when it comes to hydrogen. And then beyond all that, literally the water that it makes is never ionized, never electrolyzed, pH neutral. It doesn't mess with the pH, which is another thing that they found is not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's been unbelievable, and it's changed my family's life. It's changed my life, and not to mention, I was telling you about my heart condition. I never expected hydrogen to fix my heart condition. I just wanted to get clean. But after using it for about 6 months, I was going to heart specialists, and I was getting electrocardiograms and stress tests and all this stuff. And magically, my issue that I had for a very long time, well over 20 years, and I'm thinking I was nudging 30 years on it. Eventually, the issue completely went away, and the doctors couldn't believe it. I was supposed to have open heart surgery. I never needed it, never got it, never needed it. And then eventually other people who had similar issues as mine, same exact results. They used hydrogen, and there's some issues going out there. I'm not going to say what it is that's causing it to keep, but there's some hard issues happening out there.
Oh yeah.
And I have some theories, both backed by science and just some of my theories. And most of my theories have been throughout the years been proven true. I would say about 88% of my theories have been proven factual through science, because I've been theorizing things for a long time. And I think this would be unbelievable to use for such issues too.
Yeah. And I want to bring up a point for people out there. Anytime, and this is a clue, so hint, 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 folks, anytime you see the suffix itis, I-T-I-S, itis, I-T-I-S, that is the meaning in Latin of inflammation. So you've heard us talk about chronic systemic inflammation. So when you see a condition such as arthritis or myocarditis, these conditions like this, because of chronic systemic inflammation that is affecting that organ system or joint system or muscle system, whatever the case may be, you're talking about an ability to go back in there and reduce that inflammation at the site and systemically, which when you reduce the inflammation, the itis goes away. So I just hope people got that idea there. I kind of worked around the corner on that one, but I know we're tracking on that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you clarified that. And that was actually my theory eventually, is that whatever I had going on in my heart was actually inflammatory in nature.
Yeah.
Though they kept telling me that it was like, faulty valve and this, that, and the other. And eventually the hydrogen fixed it. And I'm telling you, the doctor, you should have seen him. He was just shocked. But then what do? They don't even ask what I'm doing. They're like, you know what? This is really weird, but okay, you're fine now.
Keep it up.
Surgery. No need to cut you open and break your ribs to get you.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, you guys are not even interested in what I'm doing? That's crazy.
Well, Greg, I think, I want people to know, and again, we're going to do this in 2 parts. I'd talk to you all day, man. This is so cool. We're going to get into some sciencey techno stuff next time, but I want people to know that this is going in my body. This is going in our home. This is going in our office. And I want it to be in everybody else's hands too. So the website, again, I think the name is so appropriate, holyhydrogen.com. And that's not WHOLLY. That's HOLY, hydrogen.com. And if you'll go there, right, and we'll put this in the feed, you go in there and you're going to put holyhydrogen.com/FMI. And you guys have been so kind to allow us to refer people to that site, and you're going to give them $100 off code, which is amazing, which I think is cool. And I also want to make sure people connect with you, Greg. You mentioned your website, uprising144k.com. I want people to go there too and connect with you, because you've got a heart of gold. You want to help people, and I'm all about connecting people that have a healer heart, and you do.
Well, thank you for that. And I will say, though, I don't have a website. So did I say it wrong? Uprising 144K. What was that then? That's the name of my YouTube channel.
Oh, got it. YouTube's my bad. YouTube channel. Go there.
People have asked me to open up a website, but I do all this for free. So that's why websites are expensive, and I just haven't gone down that road. I don't have a bunch of guys helping me. I just make these videos on my phone, but I do it on YouTube under that name of that channel, though I have also started a Rumble account so I can say what I really want to say. I believe in free speech, free will. Right. I believe in this stuff. And so if people want to check that out, they can find me under, I think it's called The Hydrogen Man. You can find me on Rumble, though I haven't released. I put some videos out that were transferred from YouTube, but I'm going to be doing more videos in the near future. But people can find a ton of information just watching my videos. I've been educating on it for years. So you'll find years of data there. So thank you for sharing that, though.
Uprising 144K on your YouTube channel, and then on the Rumble, it's the Hydrogen Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. So we'll make sure to list those appropriately.
Yeah, and there's separate words on the Rumble, and then hydrogen, and then man.
Got it.
Face. Sometimes on the YouTube, it's all one word. Uprising 144. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of my little biblical kind of spiritual name. The uprising. Hydrogen ascends, by the way. There's a lot of correlations between ascension and hydrogen. And it's so spiritual. That company named Holy Hydrogen, they picked the best name ever.
They did. That's amazing.
I think hydrogen is very holy.
Well, and certainly, a lot of people that are listening right now know my wife, Dr. Michelle, and I, Greg, and we've been advocates about hydrogen. And if I had, I've said this before, and obviously I can say it better now because it's going to be affordable, because you're going to get a machine. And you mentioned that machine is just over a couple $1,000s, but you can produce this indefinitely. And that's what is unique. You don't have to be using and rationing out these little dissolvable tablets once a day because you can't afford them, or once every 2 days. But my wife and I have said to people, hydrogen needs to be a part of your daily life many, many years. And we've been out there at this thing. And so I am so excited about our relationship growing. And I'm so excited about having the Holy Hydrogen machine in my hands, and actually in our toolbox now to share with the world. So this is truly a God thing, and I'm excited about it, Greg. So thank you for your willingness to come on and share. I appreciate that too. And man, I can't wait. Maybe can you come back in a couple of weeks, and then we'll do it again, and just kind of, because I want to pick your brain about some other things too, because I think the hydrogen you've been using has made you pretty smart. So I'm believing that's there as well.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always available to share this. At least, I always tell people, for the time being, I wanted to do my job and honor what I made a promise about, which is, once I found something to help me, that's why I'm sharing this information. And then hopefully as it becomes more mainstream, then everybody else will. And there's already a lot of people picking up on it. But I will say, even the smartest of people out there have still not understood that you have to make hydrogen a specific way. And that's been what I've been so adamant about, because the science is clear. I mean, they're not in the studies, they're in the thousands. I mean, it's clear that hydrogen's amazing. And that's actually why I shift my focus, because I was, after it took, like I said, 4 or 5 years for me to be like, okay, hydrogen's obviously amazing. I get it. But then I shifted my focus in, how do we make it? What's the proper protocol? What are the proper levels that we need to use? I mean, the whole gamut of information, how to apply this. And that's when it really changed. And I think I'm the only guy out there talking about this. Nobody else talks about the importance of how to really make it and use it. So that's
what I'm excited about. I want to pick your brain on that one next time we're on, because that's an area I don't know about. I want to learn all I can. So you're my new forever hydrogen pal, buddy. I tell you, because we need it, folks. There's no question. So we have to have it. It is without question, it's essential for optimum function of the body and just that balancing aspect we talked about. But boy, many conversations to come there, my new friend.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. And, even with all the best supplements or all the things that you do, hydrogen is that one thing that without it, it brings everything into balance. And it's such a beautiful molecule. And I sincerely do love hydrogen. I just love it.
Well, I do too. And I've used these words that I think if I had one biohack to use, it would be hydrogen. I believe that. But, it's nice to know somebody else is in the same mindset as we are, because my wife and I thought we were just weird for a long time. But I guess we're not as weird alone. I guess you're weird with us, huh?
Oh, absolutely, brother. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. And I'm so glad that the company put us together. Yeah. And it's just really great to meet you. So,
well, many more to come. So there you go, folks. Greg, the Hydrogen Man, a new friend of our Hope and Health program, and a new friend of my wife and I, because seriously, we're going to put this machine in our clinic. And for those of you listening right now that are frequent visitors, you'll be able to use it right there in our clinic, and we're going to have it in our house as well. You can have your own and go to holyhydrogen.com/FMI for $100 coupon off. And it's either going to go there at checkout, you got to put that in, or some websites, it'll go there immediately. So it'll be there for you, and get it in there. And if you have any questions, you reach out to us. But I want you to go to Uprising 144K on YouTube and check out all of Greg's videos, and then go to Rumble, the Hydrogen Man, the Hydrogen Man, and check out all the videos there, and give him some feedback. You got something you want to ask him, give him some feedback, getting the feed in those things. You can do some chat there, and I know he'll answer it. And again, one more time, Greg, thank you for your willingness to come on here. And I can't wait to have you back on here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, such a pleasure. And if for some crazy reason, people want to also, they can contact me even at my email, which is uprising144k@gmail.com. And a lot of people contact me with different questions, but, I usually suggest, contact the company, check out the company's website. They have a ton of scientific, all the data, like the links for the scientific studies, if you want to read about the hydrogen and whatnot and what it can do. People, usually for me, I don't know. People contact me for some weird reason sometimes, but you're welcome to. They have questions about my videos or different stuff, but hopefully all the videos will answer your questions. But I have almost, I don't know, it's about 400 videos. So there's a lot to go. There's a lot to go over. I've been doing it for a long time. And I really sincerely appreciate you, Dr. Mark, for opening a channel so that people can discover more about hydrogen. Because there's a lot of people out there in need, a lot of people out there who are hurting, and they don't even realize that this magic is already out there. This device already exists. It's already out there. And it doesn't cost you, $2 million or $100,000. It's totally accessible for the majority of people. And like you said, you'll make all the hydrogen water you want. It's literally penny. It's crazy. And so I'm just so grateful I really am grateful for this company and what they're doing and doing it the right way. And there's not a lot of companies that do that. So.
Well, I appreciate you, Greg, and appreciate our growing friendship. It's going to be a good one. And I'm going to become a wonderful student of not just the science, but also the manufacturing process, because I want to learn all that. And I know our listeners have got their curiosity completely piqued right now. So it's going to be awesome. So, man, I appreciate you. We'll spin this back around and we'll put all the feeds, folks, inside of the show notes. And look, email him. You heard him. If you have a question, get on the website first. Don't pester him with silly questions. But if you have a pressing question, he'll get that to you. And check out, again, his YouTube channel. And also go to the website, holyhydrogen.com/FMI, and get your machine in your house today, just like my wife and I are going to have in our home. And we're also going to have it in our Functional Medical Institute practice in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So for this episode of Hope and Health, we'll see you later. Look forward to having you back next time.
Doctors Mark and Michelle Sherwood and their clinic can help you find the hope and health you were created to enjoy. Go to sherwood.tv for clear, proven ways you can be healthier. Subscribe at sherwood.tv